good morning. It's Friday. Okay, and y'all know what that means. On Friday, it's Friday in the Brushfire Mind. It's Firearms Friday. And normally we go looking. We don't have to look very hard. I mean, there's at least a few a week. We usually pick one DRT, dead right there. The story of a lawfully armed citizen defending their lives with a firearm. But everybody's talking this week about Kyle Rittenhouse. So, there's a few things to be said on this particular one. Hold on. There we go. That's a little better. Kyle Rittenhouse got something wrong. Apparently he's 17 years old. So, his carrying the firearm may prove to have been a problem. However, outside of that discrepancy, the fact of the matter is, it is lawful. Now, I'm going to explain this correctly. In Wisconsin, it is lawful to open carry a rifle. In Wisconsin. Now, the correct statement is, it is lawful to open carry a rifle in every state in the United States of America. However, there are some hostile rogue states in this country, like California, where unconstitutional laws have been passed to prevent you carrying your firearm in compliance with the law of the land, which is the U.S. Constitution, wherein the Second Amendment leaves no room for interpretation. And to be very clear on that, where the Second Amendment says shall not be infringed, I want you to pay close attention. My next sentence is not an endorsement of arming children. But the fact of the matter is, even a law which prevents children from owning firearms, and I mean buying a firearm without adult supervision, under the color and the letter of the law, that law is unconstitutional. Is it reasonable to restrict the ownership of a firearm from children? That's a different question. The law, however, is very clear on the matter. Now, I would actually go so far as to argue that supports my position that we should revoke everyone's citizenship and make them reapply for it. And yes, me too. I'm happy to. In fact, there's a good show idea. I'll just sit here and answer the citizenship questions for you sometime. That'll be fun. Because I don't know if y'all know this. I had this conversation with somebody a few weeks ago, and he said, "Well, we need to reform this. We need to reform the immigration thing because the citizenship test is just so hard and confusing." I'm like, it's only 10 questions, right? It's 10 questions randomly chosen from a list of 100 questions. And they're questions like, what rights are guaranteed by the First Amendment? Who's the president? Name two cabinet positions. By the way, pro tip, if you're taking the citizenship test and your question is name two cabinet positions, the correct answer is the secretary of pick a thing and the secretary of pick another thing. Aced it. So, Kyle shows us the mirror of the modern racist, just absolutely racist bias of the media. We've talked several times on this show about the Dindu headline. Every time you see the didn't do headline, he didn't do nothing. He didn't do nothing. It's a lie. Every single time it turns out that Ahmaud Arbery had a violent felony history and was in the process of committing a felony when he attacked someone and got himself shot. George Floyd had a violent criminal history and attacked someone, and that got him killed when he fought the police while high on drugs. Rayshard Brooks had a felony rap sheet that read like he was just stealing children and raping them in his basement. And this newest one, Jacob Blake, has a violent criminal history that includes domestic abuse, drug use, and, felony violence. I think Crowder said it best. If you look at Jacob Blake, who attacked police officers with a knife, and then you look at Kyle Rittenhouse, who defended himself when other people shot at him, and you think that there's not a difference between these two, that's because you're the racist. It's that simple. Every time you see the Dindu headline, it's a lie. Well, I'm going to pop the seat up just another bump because I'm not quite centered. That's better. There we go. There we go. Okay. Well, with Kyle Rittenhouse, we're getting the opposite effect. This from BET. Kyle Rittenhouse, 7 things you need to know about 17-year-old white supremacist who killed Jacob Blake protesters. Okay. I'm not going to get into these guys, the Jacob Blake protesters, too much, but I will say a couple things about them. I'm not even going to bother with their names, but go check them out. Both of them are felons, and both of them have felony sexual assault histories. Okay, statistically, it shouldn't be likely that you can randomly murder 2 people in a crowd and they're both sex offenders. Except that we're talking about left-wing demonstrators. A left wing that has been fighting for sexual degeneracy since the 60s. And I'm not talking about homosexuality. I don't give a shit. I don't care who you want to marry, who you want to sleep with. But the whole free love, I mean, we're talking about people who are pro-adultery, pro-pedophilia, pro-polyamory. We're talking about people who are pro-whore. And they attacked this kid. Let's be very clear on this. As we're going to go through this article just a little bit, and then I want to look at some of the video footage. Apart from the question of his possessing the firearm, which, by the way, the guy that he shot in the arm was also a felon who should not have had a firearm under the law. Right? So Kyle Rittenhouse may have been a few months or a year too young to be carrying a firearm under the law. But the guy who pointed a gun at his head at point-blank range and was shot in the right arm for his trouble, that guy was in felony possession of the Glock that he tried to shoot Kyle with. So BET details this kid, and okay, they talk about how he loved cops. He's a high school dropout. Okay. After Floyd went down, after Brooks went down, these same people were up in arms. Well, why you got to talk about their history? What's that got to do with this incident? It establishes a pattern of behavior. Okay? Now, I'm going to grant to you that this kid's history also establishes a pattern of behavior. Right? Follow along. Hold on just a second. I've got some comments over here. Per the clips I've seen, it appears the first attacker tried to kick him, the second tried to club him with a skateboard, and the third was drawing a pistol. Oh, yeah, Steve, I'm going to get to all that in just a minute. But remember, before Kyle was running away from the crowd, and they clearly attempted to murder him with bludgeons and firearms, and he returned fire to defend himself, before that, he shot somebody in the head. And in the incident before they started chasing him, where he shot somebody in the head, the video is very clear. Someone else in the crowd, apparently not the guy he shot in the head, but someone else in the crowd fired a weapon at Kyle, and then Kyle fired a weapon and shot the guy in the head. And then he tried to go and, like, we'll get into that in just a second. I'm gonna get to this. So I'll grant you first, let me grant your claim that the history doesn't matter. All that matters are the circumstances of the case at hand. Okay, in that case, Floyd was inebriated and attacked and fought the cops, resisted arrest, and kicked one cop as he shrugged his way through. Arbery was in the midst of committing a felony when a citizen's arrest was attempted. He attacked the lawfully armed citizens, attempted to take their weapon, and was shot for his trouble. Jacob Blake was armed with a knife and fighting the cops. And then, what's the other one? Rayshard Brooks stole a police officer's weapon and fired it at them before he was shot. Those are four perfectly justified. Oh, and Michael Brown. Who cares what happened before the Michael Brown incident? You know, if the history doesn't matter, the fact of the matter is Michael Brown attempted to steal a police officer's weapon after striking him several times, and that's why he was shot. Right? This is the case with all of these. Even Breonna Taylor. Breonna Taylor was murdered in his sleep by police officers for no reason. Bullshit. Breonna Taylor was in a house with a violent criminal who opened fire on police who were serving a lawful warrant. And I don't want to hear any of your bullshit about the no-knock warrant, because they did not use a no-knock warrant on Breonna Taylor's house. They had a warrant with a no-knock provision, and they knocked anyway, which is when the boyfriend opened fire. So I don't care what you think about the no-knock warrant provisions. They're irrelevant to the Breonna Taylor case. She died because she was engaged in criminal activity with a criminal who fired a firearm at police. And this is not a case of, well, I didn't know they were cops, I thought it was a home invasion. Not the case. They knocked and announced, and then he opened fire. That's a big damn difference. So that's where we are if I grant you that the history is irrelevant. Now that you're clearly deciding that the history is relevant, it is also the case that in every one of those instances that I've just detailed, there is a history of violent criminality associated with that criminal. So, now, you're going to have to accept the premise that that history is relevant in order to make these claims. BET, he's a high school dropout. Rittenhouse dropped out of high school, and it doesn't say it doesn't say why that might be relevant. It doesn't say anything about high school dropouts being statistically prone to crime, which is a fact, but I'll move on. His Facebook account backed the Blue Lives Matter movement. Okay, clearly they mean this to be derogatory. This, oh, you're pro-police? That makes you a Nazi. Now, obviously I'm editorializing this a little bit, but why else would this be mentioned? This should be considered a point in the boy's favor. Rittenhouse attended a Trump rally. Yes, because that makes him a Nazi. That makes him a racist. And that is what they're suggesting here. He often shot his semi-automatic rifle for leisure. See, again, none of these say, oh, Well, he beat a pregnant woman while his buddies raped her and he pointed a gun at her, like George Floyd. Or he apparently locked children up in a house and beat them incessantly and was arrested for false imprisonment and child cruelty, vis-a-vis Rayshard Brooks. None of this reads like the history of violence and criminality and spouse and child abuse that has followed so many of the other criminals. He often shot his semi-automatic rifle for leisure. So do I, and I haven't killed anybody in a decade. Next April. Rittenhouse was a part of local police cadet programs. That sounds like responsible community engagement to me. But this is BET, who obviously are, the organization is the Black Entertainment Television, clearly supporting the active anti-American racism of the Black Lives Matter movement. And this is the one that really caught my attention. The YMCA, his former employer, said that he is not welcome back. Okay, that is a deliberately editorialized headline. The YMCA, his former employer, said that he is not welcome back. Oh, I see. So there must have been some incident at the YMCA in his past where he was relieved of his job there. He was fired or asked to resign or whatever, and it was some kind of violence or sexual thing, or probably what they're fishing for is that you assume racism, and that not only did they get rid of him, but they won't have him back. And then you get, he will not be returning to the YMCA. We abhor these violent acts. Our condolences. Oh, he was a part-time employee that was on furlough since March. And here's the article that interview comes from. Turns out he was on furlough because of the COVID-19 situation, and now because he has defended himself from rioters who were all violent convicted felons, the YMCA has decided that they will extend his furlough indefinitely and just not bring him back. I see. So, and then he gave an interview claiming he was protecting property in Kenosha. Okay. Oh, you monster, protecting property. Because let's not forget, the 1619 chick says property destruction is not violence. To be clear, she says that because she's stupid. So okay. I've got two videos here I want to take a look at. And Steve, since you're watching, here's the thing. I'm like 89% sure that I got the sound problem fixed. So I'm going to hit play. And if you can't hear what this guy is saying, I need to know that shit real quick in the comments. Hook me up, brother.
The police shooting of Jacob Blake in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Authorities tonight have now revealed the name of the officer and new details about what they say they found at the scene. We're also learning more tonight about the 17-year-old from a neighboring state, now accused of opening fire on protesters. Two were...
To be clear, they keep saying, oh, he's from a neighboring state. He drove from out of state. It's a border city. It's a state border city. The kid lives 20 minutes away in the next state over. You see how they lie? It's technically correct. But this would be like if you lived in Columbus, Georgia, and went to Columbus, Alabama, and they talked about how you came from out of state. Technically true. Thanks for the feedback, Steve. That means that we fixed the problem, hopefully now and forever. Knock, knock.
Killed. Tonight, what he said in an interview just moments before the shooting started.
And if you're just listening, if you're in a position to do so, stop whatever you're doing and watch the next few seconds of this video, because I'm about to point to something that's probably just going to piss you off. It should piss you off. And I'm going to point it out because this is ABC lying. They're taking a page out of Jubal Harshaw's book. The best way to lie is to tell exactly the correct amount of truth. So pay close attention to this.
ABC's Alex Perez in Kenosha again tonight.
Tonight, new details on the teenager
here's the video.
investigators
They're
that
chasing him
showed
down
up
the
in
street.
Kenosha armed with a rifle and allegedly opened fire on demonstrators protesting the police shooting of
See,
Jacob
I did not
Blake.
pause that.
Authorities
You see what they did? They show you the footage of Kyle running down the street. He gets knocked down. They're talking about what happened right now. He gets knocked down, and they cut the video right there because they want to tell you that this kid is a murderer and a white supremacist and a monster. And in order for you to believe that, you cannot see that the rest of what happened there. I'm done with these assholes. We're moving on to the other video, right? And we're gonna get to that bit of this video, because when they chase him down the street and knock him down, they attack him brutally. And when I say brutally, they're bludgeoning him with blunt force weapons, and here it is. They bludgeon him with blunt force weapons, and then one of the attackers tries to fire a gun at him. Watch. Okay, here they come. They're coming down the street, chasing him. This is... Boom. He's down on the ground. Kick. Skateboard. Strike. Shot. Brother draws a gun. He shoots him in the arm. He gets up and he leaves. Okay? That's how they lie to you. Is they tell you the right amount of truth. If you hear a claim made, if a claim is made by a media outlet which is left biased, and you don't go and look for more information, this is your fault. You have tolerated being propagandized into believing what the enemy wants you to believe. And I don't want you to get confused by that. When I say the enemy, I mean those enemies of the United States of America and any American citizens who offer them aid and comfort. Not only will I go so far as to say that Black Lives Matter, the organization, is a violent anti-American terrorist organization, I will go so far as to say its membership and contributors and supporters who are American citizens are engaged in treason by its legal definition. Because the stated objectives of the Black Lives Matter movement are to end the United States of America. No euphemisms. I don't feel like I want to be careful about this language. These people are the enemy, and they seek to do you great harm. And the conglomerated cartel media, the ABCs, the CNNs, all those, they're part of that. They are currently running an active propaganda campaign in support of treasonous insurgencies within the borders of the United States of America. We are not headed for a civil war. It is upon us. And it's time to stop pretending that it isn't. All right, that got a little darker and heavier than I wanted it to this morning, but, I mean, a lot of dark, heavy shit going on. It's Friday. Weekend is upon us. I've got some good plans this weekend. Y'all be safe out there. Y'all be safe out there. And don't leave the house unarmed. It's not safe. It's not safe because where our police have not abandoned us, the Democrat governors and mayors, yes, you, Keisha Lance Bottoms, have ordered them to, or supported their enemies. They support this violence. There's a good case to be made that Mayor Lance Bottoms is directly responsible for a lot of this because of the way she handled the Ahmaud Arbery case before the country got caught on fire, because of the way that she capitulated to the lynch mobs to go and conduct a police badged lynching of law-abiding American citizens at the behest of violent racist lynch mobs. So, say what you like. Disagree with me. But I'm going to need to see some evidence. Because there's plenty of evidence to support my claims, my positions, and America's concerns. What there is not is evidence to support a first-degree murder charge against Kyle Rittenhouse. Self-defense is self-defense. And let's be very clear about this as well. One of the major objectives of this terrorist organization, Black Lives Matter, is the abolition of the police. Now, back in May, back in May and June, when we were first dealing with the Ahmaud Arbery case, I made the claim back then that the protesters protesting justice for Ahmaud, okay, black man can't go jogging without getting shot. That's a false statement. I made the case back then that the protests were never about race. They were about race, but not in that way. They were never about justice for Ahmaud. What they are about, what these protesters are interested in, is to make sure that all people who are not white men are allowed to commit crimes without repercussions. It's that simple. That's the claim that I made back in May. I had no idea how right I was back then, because that's the claim I made then. That's the prediction I made then. And within a few weeks, we were seeing the first defund the police calls to action. Honestly, when I made that original prediction, I thought I was hyperbolically describing an extreme faction, but it's not the case. What I was describing, unbeknownst to me at the time, was the Democratic voting base in its entirety. I've seen many of posts on Facebook where people are trying to rebut the accusations that Joe Biden wants to defund the police. Keep saying he never said that. Bullshit. What he said when he was asked if he supported defunding the police, he said, "I don't support defunding the police. I support reallocating large resources from the police to other government programs." Joe, have you been talking to Bill about what the definition of is? I don't support defunding the police. I support defunding the police. Now, in Joe's defense, I'll say this. He has not come out in support of the absolute abolition of the police, but he has absolutely come out in support of the defunding of the police, of the shrinking of the police. Now, quite separately, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, AOC, and the BLM movement writ large have said they've been very clear about this. No, we're not talking about half measures. We mean the total abolition of police, after which time they no longer exist. They've made no bones about it. Their objective is to eliminate the police. What happened with Kyle Rittenhouse? What do you think community policing looks like? When they set up the CHAZ, the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone, immediately, in the zone where they declared themselves to be a separate entity from the United States, these treasonous bastards threw up walls and got armed militia out patrolling the streets and killing people. I mean, they had a police force that just killed people. They didn't bother to prosecute. They didn't bother to offer a trial. Because they declared themselves separate from the United States. So all of a sudden, they didn't have any constitutional guarantee to a speedy and fair trial by a jury of their peers. No guaranteed right to face their accuser. No, just shot in the street. That's what was happening in CHAZ. They kicked out the cops and they brought in the murder crews. They brought in the gun squads. Right? Do you know what community policing looks like? It has names. Like La Cosa Nostra, our thing, the Mafia, the Black Panthers, the Crips, the Bloods, MS-13, La Raza. Organized crime, as we know it today, the way that organized crime was originally organized in this country, almost without exception, the big organized crime gangs began as essentially community policing efforts. The mafia began in its American incarnation because neighborhoods didn't have police. There were no police in certain Italian neighborhoods. And so they said, you know what? It's cool, whatever. We got a little bit of a crime problem, people who don't belong here. You know, you get people who come into the neighborhood to do bad stuff, and we're not going to put up with it. You're not going to go rob my grandma down the street. And since there's not going to be a cop to come out anyway, I'm just going to tool you up with a... Oh, let's see, what would it have been back then? Probably a 38. That's it, right? That's what community policing looks like. And that's a whole other rabbit hole to go down. Guys, it's Friday. Get out there, have a good weekend, but be careful, be safe. Don't drive drink. Don't fry bacon naked. Sex, drugs, rock and roll, videotaping farm animals. No two at the same time.